You're listening to 17 Carat K-Pop, the show that's a little bit of everything with a K-pop twist. Visit 17caratkpop.weebly.com for more information about the show. That's 17caratkpop.weebly.com. Enjoy the show! Hello everybody and welcome back to 17 Carat K-Pop. This is episode 99 and we're about to reach the 100th episode. So I have really been in a lot of reflection lately about the show, and I don't usually get super personal on the show, but I just want to take a minute because it is almost my 100th episode. I'm getting contemplative and just thinking about all the work I've put into the show this year, and this show really is, music is so intertwined with how I identify and who I am and my life story that for me it just makes sense for this show to serve as diary entries in some ways, just markers of different points in my life, and so I'm going to do that here. So I'm not complaining here, I want to state some things for the record, really, so that in the future I can look back and be like, wow, I sounded a little frustrated back then, but look at me now. I hope I get to feel that way someday. So, first of all, remember that I've been doing the show for a couple years now. It's mostly been up and posted on different apps this year when I really kicked into high gear and decided to really launch myself into this show at full speed ahead and make it my big passion project. So it's been around for a lot longer than 100 episodes actually, but for the sake of the new revamped version of the show, I say 100 episodes, and that's kind of the actual published show. Anyway, so I won't bore you by going through all the steps. Long story short, though, I'm a big math nerd, and I crunched some numbers and thought about all of the hours I try to squeeze into, whether it's mornings or evenings or whatever, whenever I find time to work on this show. And so calculating all the average amounts of hours since March that I've been working on the show, so I didn't even count the years before that, the months before that in 2020, just since March. So the past 9 months, how much I put into the show. I did a lot of math, and long story short, I've spent approximately 1,900 hours working on the show. If you combine the 50 hours of content you can stream now, or the roughly 50 hours of content you can listen to now for the show, combined with me doing my own PR, essentially, emailing interview requests, doing interviews, preparing for interviews, researching, editing, recording, uploading videos, and promoting those videos on social media. I'm probably forgetting about 10 other things I've been doing for the show, building the website from scratch for the show, and then constantly updating it, the weekly newsletter I write. I mean, I've been doing a lot for the show, writing it, recording it, all of it. So anyway, so that all totaled up probably to an average of, my conservative estimate is about 1,900 hours, and then 50 hours of content that actually made it past the cutting room floor into my final episodes. It turns out that based on the number of email requests I've sent out, emailed interview requests, I have gotten responses less than 2% of the time. Well, gotten positive responses, I mean less than 2% of the time. And I'm not saying this to complain, I'm just, like I said before, saying it for the record because I would love to listen to this episode again a year or two from now and suddenly I get a 15% positive response rate or something else that's a big leap forward. And maybe then I've worked twice as many hours still, but I just want to continue to see my hard work pay off. So this is kind of just a log of sorts, a verbal log of my show's progress. So thank you for putting up with that little aside. We will get to the show now, but I just wanted to take a moment to say that although I don't know for sure, it's looking a lot less likely as the days go on that my big special interview for my 100th episode is actually going to work out. So it's disappointing, but I'm just going to use this as fuel to make the show better, and then maybe by the 200th episode, maybe even the 150th episode, the artist that I had hoped to have on the show will turn around and agree to be on the show. So fingers crossed for me, and I'm just saying this because I've been thinking a lot lately about would I do anything different, what am I doing wrong, why is the show not really picking up steam, and I just think it's going to take a lot more time. It's been a few years, but it's going to take even more years and probably twice as many hours, so I'm just taking this moment to be proud of myself and my hard work while also realizing that it's going to take a while to build up some sort of name for myself, to make the grind pay off, make the grind of coal turn into a diamond or whatever the phrase is. So it's going to take time, but I'm working on it, and so I'm just taking this moment to reflect. And I'm excited for what my reflection sounds like when I reach my 200th episode, because I plan to keep going, and that's the bottom line here, is that I've learned as I work on the show that I would do it anyway, even if I knew that I wouldn't even get that less than 2% response rate, positive response rate. Like if I was going to get a 0% positive response rate, all rejections or no answers. Would I still do the show? Yes, I would. It's such a passion of mine and I truly love it. It's a lot of work, but I also just love it. It's really nerve-wracking for me. As I've said before on the show, I'm autistic, and interviewing people and picking up on social cues, and when not just emailing interview requests, but when interviewing people, and all of that is so nerve-wracking for me, but it's so rewarding. I love having these conversations with people. I love just engaging with people and learning more about their stories and sharing their stories. I love feeling like I have a voice and a platform. And so that's what I've learned during this show, is just as much as building up some credibility for myself is going to take more time and can get very frustrating someday to feel like I've put in all this work and it's not coming to fruition, I just have to remember that I'm in it for the long haul and that it's worth it. I wouldn't take those 1900 hours back because I had fun for most of those 1900 hours, because this is something that I truly love to do. So anyway, I guess I'm just giving a cheesy speech now. That's a note to myself and a pep talk to myself, but also hopefully encouragement for you, because if there's something that you truly love to do, that's what life is all about, is pursuing that thing you love to do. So keep doing it, even if it feels like no one cares or it's not getting through to anyone or touching anyone's life. You never know, and you got to keep it up. You just got to keep it up. It's just, we all need to find our own personal sources of joy and personal growth. And for me, that's interviewing people, or trying to, that's working on this show. So just some things to keep in mind as we end the year. So thank you for listening. And we'll see. There's still a slight chance I'll have that special interview for my 100th episode. But even if it doesn't work out, I do have fun planned for the rest of the year on my show. I'm going to have, the next few episodes will be my big countdowns and roundups of the best of 2020 in K-pop and in C-pop and J-pop and Western pop too. I just want to talk about pop music this year. So a lot of countdown lists for songs, best music videos, performances, a lot of end-of-year K-pop award show recaps. There's a lot to get to this year. I want to revisit my 2019 predictions for what 2020 would hold for K-pop. And a lot of it is actually still relevant despite the pandemic disrupting a lot of the industry. So that was an interesting look back. I also want to share my Spotify Wrapped results and talk about, it can be super funny. You can geek out and enjoy being a math nerd and looking into your own Spotify Wrapped data to just see what it says about your listening habits over time and how that changes as you get older. So anyway, I've done quite the deep dive into those stats, and I find it a very interesting, reflective on this past year for me personally. And I really think there's something to be said for why we're so interested in each other's Spotify Wraps, because I don't know about you, but I love reading and seeing social media posts with other people sharing their Spotify Wrapped results for the year, because I think it's such a cool way to bring home the fact that music is a soundtrack to our lives. It means a lot to people, and it just feels like you're hearing a personal secret or story of someone else's. You're getting to hear their life story by looking at their Spotify Wrapped data. So I do think it is interesting. I hope it is anyway, and not just seemingly a weird, conceited move to talk about my stats this year on the show. If anything else, at least you will be interested in math more by the end of the episode, I promise. Alright, without further ado, let's just get right into it with the headlines of the day. Some coronavirus-related updates in the world of K-pop. Hui from Pentagon, due to the recent COVID scares in the entertainment industry, has decided to postpone his military enlistment. Unfortunately, there are several new COVID cases in the world of K-pop. UP10TION's Kogil just tested positive. The Trot singer Lee Chanwoo tested positive. Berry Good's manager, although all the members tested negative, but their manager tested positive. And Everglow's Iran and Shihyun. But in better news, from TVXQ just donated 50,000 masks to welfare facilities and more vulnerable populations in his hometown. Some more better news from BTS. Life Goes On makes BTS the fastest group to earn 3 number ones on the Billboard Hot 100 since the Bee Gees did in the 70s. It's been 50 years. and they are now overall the fastest group to earn 3 number ones since the Beatles did. BTS are also now officially the first artist, not K-pop artist, just first artist, period, to fill up the entire top 6 of the Billboard Hot 100 digital singles chart. And Life Goes On is the first song primarily in Korean to ever top the Hot 100. 62 years of the chart existing, and they have never had a song primarily in English charted. But finally, BTS has been able to do it with their song Life Goes On. BTS are also making news for their Disney Holiday Sing-Along performance that was out November 30th. They sang Santa Claus is Coming to Town, which is now the only Christmas song ever, and they decided that they are going to donate their Dynamite outfits from the Dynamite video off for charity. They've auctioned off microphones before, but they've never actually auctioned off clothes before for this Music Cares charity, which is part of Music Cares is like the philanthropic branch of the Grammy Awards company. And this is the first time they're doing something like this. And what's interesting to me is that the conservative estimate people are making for what their clothes will be auctioned off for is from $20,000 to $40,000. So first of all, I get that that's a conservative estimate, but only $20,000 to $40,000 because the mics sold for $83,200. So I don't get that difference. If I would argue that actually the clothes may be worth more than the microphones, but I don't know much about auctions, so we will see. This auction will take place January 29th of next year. South Korea has officially passed their amendment that we talked about on the last episode that will now allow for military enlistment to be you can be up to age 30 before you actually enlist in the military as a man in South Korea. It used to be age 28 by then you had to enlist, but now you can postpone that until age 30 if you have this proof of a significant cultural contribution to South Korea worldwide, which naturally BTS has done. So Jin will not have to enlist super soon. He can wait 2 more years because he did win a special Order of Cultural Merit. He got a special medal a few years ago because of BTS's impact on South Korea's identity on the world stage. Other good news, Jay from Day 6 donated $100,000 to the JED Foundation, which is a suicide prevention organization. And the Guhara Act officially passed. We've talked about that a lot on the show before, but basically, so we won't get into the weeds of it again, but basically what it does now is it will allow for certain differences and more stipulations around who gets your inheritance. If, depending on how much your parent is in your life, it will automatically default to a certain parent, and so now Guhara's mom, who has been accused of trying to take her inheritance for just selfish means when she wasn't actually a big part of Guhara's life, she will now face more obstacles to getting Guhara's inheritance. After a very brief amount of time with the new girl group Black Swan, Hyemi has apparently left the group. There were rumors swirling about her recently about her taking money from a fan and promising to pay them back and never doing it. And remember, not all press is good press in other countries. It's just a USA thing maybe, but it's not there, and so this negative press is really bad for the group. So Hyemi has decided to leave very quickly. Meanwhile, NAFLA just mutually agreed to terminate his contract with MKIT Rain, Make It Rain, however you want to pronounce it, MKIT Rain, his company. He has parted ways mutually with them. His contract is up. Alexa just won the Asian Artist Award Focus Award this year, and she wore a really cute hot pink outfit. Chan from Victon is now on Instagram. And lastly, Lunar Solar, a rookie girl group, has announced their fandom name now. They decided to go with the name Haydal, which means 2 different things. One, it means sea otter in Korean, which is like how, quote, sea otters hold hands tightly to not be swept in water. Lunar Solar and fans hold hands tightly and we rely on each other, which is the cutest explanation ever. And 2, the name of the group is Lunar Solar, and Hae means sun, Dal means moon in Korean. So it's like the sun and the moon, you're everything to them. It's a super cute fandom name, and I love that meaning behind it. Some miscellaneous updates in terms of view counts and stuff. Now officially reaching 15 million views, Taeyeon's Lawn Flight video, maybe 5 million conservatively. I will credit to myself for that. 60 million views now on 2 NCT videos, Regular, the English version, and Simon Says. 17's Left and Right, 70 million views now. NCT 127's Kick It, 90 million. NCT U The Seventh Sense, 95 million. Entering the 100 million views club, Red Velvet's Happiness and Stray Kids with Backdoor. 650 million views on BTS's Dynamite, which is already 50 million more more than the amount of views when I just recorded a November 30th episode, and now it's early December, and already it went from 600 million to 650. So by the time this episode airs, it may be at 700, who knows? 800 million views now on Mic Drop and Idol, both BTS videos. BTS is now the first act in YouTube's history to ever get 2 music videos to reach 20 million likes, now that Boy With Love just reached that milestone. GOT7's new album reached number 1 on the US iTunes charts. G-Idol just reached 2 million Spotify followers. And Kai's solo debut EP topped iTunes charts around the world in 50 different countries. A few 17 updates. First of all, they are scheduled to perform at the 2020 FNS Music Festival, which is huge. That's a really famous annual event in Japan. Second of all, Woozi just posted a wonderful V-Live we talked about before, where he wrote a song alongside viewers, and now he's posting more great online content, now on Instagram, where he claimed it was like a mic test, but really the video ended up being a cover of Versace on the Floor by Bruno Mars, and we love to hear it. This segment of the show that I used to call Quarantunes, I've officially changed to Stay Tuned. If you know, you know. Anyway, in terms of the latest updates that are going on in the music industry more broadly and in the world of concerts and things like that, there have been some unique changes to music consumption patterns throughout 2020 that are revealing themselves. The UK is currently on track to reach a 3-decade high for vinyl record sales. They are currently on track to sell more vinyls than they have since 1990, which has interesting implications for all sorts of music industries, not just the European one, because think about all the potential if suddenly it's cool and retro to own a vinyl again. Then, you had BTS selling Dynamite, the single, on a cassette tape. Maybe things like Walkmans will make a comeback. Who knows? Maybe putting together homemade playlists through iTunes and burning them onto a CD will be a popular thing again. So who knows? But this is a unique possibility, although I will add that any widespread, super mainstreamed, super common trend of selling your music again through vinyl, I don't see happening soon unless it's domestically produced and shipped, because of all of the messed up shipping and production schedules due to COVID and everything. That's all kind of up in the air and unpredictable right now if you're internationally shipping and making vinyls. But anyway, it's an interesting merch possibility that seemed obsolete, but all trends come back around. One form of consuming music and entertainment that is not exactly getting the resurgence it deserves is the radio. Radio Disney is officially shutting down. It marks a huge end of an era for a lot of kids like me who grew up listening to Radio Disney. After 25 years on the air, in early 2021, Radio Disney will be no more. This is due to a bunch of company restructuring that Disney has been undergoing lately, mostly due to the pandemic, and I'm not surprised that the radio department didn't make the cut, unfortunately. And it's really sad because it truly is the end of an era. Radio Disney had just a lot of fun, wholesome content, not just playing music that the regular radio stations, for lack of a better term, were playing. It was a station that would play music the other stations wouldn't, which often maybe was for good reason, because it was like Kids Bop sounding and it wasn't very good, but kids liked it, like me. But also, there were some good quality under-the-radar artists who got a platform through Radio Disney when they weren't taken seriously by other platforms. So anyway, it was a really cool outlet to discover new artists, and really quality talent would be on the show. It was also just a lot of fun for kids to call into the show, and there were a lot of giveaways, and I could go on, but it's just quite an end of an era here, and it's really sad. But in better news for radio, it's not dead yet, and there's a lot going, especially for channels like SiriusXM. The latest SiriusXM station you should know about is 88 Rising. They are officially launching their own that will play 24/7 music from artists from Korea, the Philippines, Thailand, China, Japan, Vietnam, Indonesia. It's basically an Asian music station that will celebrate a bunch of songs that weren't being played on mainstream radio. This station will be available to listen to both online and through the SiriusXM app, just not through car radio. The Asian music market has actually grown by double digits for 2 years in a row now, which is extra interesting when you consider that overall the Asian music market has grown by 11.5% just in the past year, and it also grew a huge amount the year before that. But that is excluding the Japanese music market, which actually dropped 0.9% this year, which isn't terrible, but it's just an interesting caveat to the growth of the Asian music market. It makes me wonder why J-pop is not having the best year, but that's a conversation for another day. One J-pop artist who is still thriving worldwide is Miku, of course, and so Miku fans, can I have your attention for a second? The costume design contest has started. Make sure you go to mikuexpo.com for more info, because this is a contest for designing the outfit, and the winning outfit will be what Miku wears when she performs at the expo, which is going to be online for 2021 officially. She's going to perform 1,000 Little Voices wearing possibly your outfit, so make sure you submit your outfit design before it's too late. Meanwhile, Blackpink is preparing for their first ever online concert, which you can access if you are a paying YouTube subscriber of theirs. It's just called The Show, which is what I expected it to be called after they released an album called The Album, and it will be December 27th at 2 p.m. Korean time, which I believe is midnight Central Time. The iHeartRadio Jingle Ball Village event is going virtual this year, naturally, and they just announced the event lineup, which includes Chunha and Luna, which I am so psyched for, so make sure you tune in again through the site, through the app. 102.7 KISS FM is where you can hear it. This event, they will be performing at like the pre-show event, so not the main stage, so it starts early at 5:10 Pacific time. Central Time is 7:10. And that will be December 10th, so very soon, mark your calendars. These virtual alternatives to in-person performances will have to continue for some time now, because even when we try to have all the safety precautions to have an in-person event, even those events are getting canceled because of COVID. The latest example being a story we've talked about a lot on the show before, but here's an update from the Flaming Lips. Their quote-unquote space bubble concerts, where each attendee actually stands in a plastic bubble so that they are socially distanced from other attendees, those concerts were set for December, but they've been postponed to early next year because it's just not worth that risk. There is still risk there no matter how many precautions you take in a public setting, and so they decided, due to the exponential growth of the spread of COVID in the USA right now, the Flaming Lips are just not going to even try the bubble concert for now. So even our attempts to have live music in the time of COVID are falling apart due to COVID. Such is 2020 news. Here is the SparkNotes version of the politics of certain decisions that have been made regarding the transfer of pop culture content among countries. For the first time in almost 4 years now, they last did this in March of 2017, China has granted a license to a game that is made in South Korea. China's National Press and Publication Administration just licensed a game made in South Korea called Summoner's War: Lost Centuria. This game has actually been made since 2014, but the goal basically is, since this game, Summoner's War, has been getting 80% of its profits from overseas users, the goal is to kind of balance out that percentage more. Instead of being so heavily leaning on overseas buyers, they want more of the profit to come from within Asia. And so this step is billed as a way to do that, and to overall then therefore help in terms of Asia collectively as a soft power force. And this would also help, though, Korea's competitive edge against China in the video game market, because currently China's game market is around 6 times the size of Korea's, and so this would not make it so disparate that there isn't competition. It would get South Korea to be more competitive. But some political analysts say that this is really a calculated move about soft power that has less to do with just pop culture and the international stage and the representation of Asia in that context, but has more to do with the fact that we're undergoing a presidential transition in the USA right now, and a shift in presidents leads to a shift in priorities and characterizations of relationships and alliances between countries. So as President-elect Biden has worked on, or at least promised to work on, strengthening the alliance between the USA and South Korea, some political analysts suspect that this move is really just to curry some favor with South Korea before the USA can jump in there and form a tighter bond with South Korea, essentially, and China doesn't want to be left out of that potential. And so China's kind of trying to possibly stay on South Korea's good side a bit more than before by increasing the goodwill between those countries through this licensing agreement. What this really means politically is still being just guessed about, but I will keep you posted when we hear more. Meanwhile, within South Korea, there is also a lot happening on the cultural front. The National Assembly just passed a 400 million won budget for K-pop training into 2021. They just laid out some budget priorities for the coming year, and so the Ministry of Culture, Sport, and Tourism has allocated this budget for K-pop training. It's actually a much smaller amount than was initially hoped for, of 1.5 billion. Instead of 1.5 billion, they're getting 400 million won. And so the program is now preparing to train and provide the resources to train less than 6 K-pop groups. They had originally planned on promoting 6 different groups, but now that's going to be less. Some background here about why this is a big deal. There's been a thing called Project K, which basically involved training and networking for getting resources and connections for different groups and basically helping form them, mold them by providing them what they need to succeed as a band from artists who are not from South Korea. So in the past, Project K has been used to help band members from Vietnam and Myanmar come to South Korea and basically be sponsored by South Korea's budget while learning how to be an idol, essentially. But this was declared a waste of money and South Korea's resources, at least by the People Power Party, and they viewed this work as necessary in some ways, as important for just South Korea's reputation to keep doing this for them, but they also viewed it as something that maybe the government shouldn't be the ones paying for, so it's led to some political tension in the country. And essentially the opposition to Project K thinks that if the K-pop training protocol as it stands now is going so well for artists within South Korea already, why invest time and resources in artists that are from outside of Korea too? But still, the Culture Ministry's 2021 budget is 6.8 trillion won, which is a 5.9% increase from 2020. The budget is set to fund a lot of things, including aid to the pandemic-stricken industries regarding sports, culture, tourism, as well as to help fund what they called, we talked about before on the show, they're calling, quote, the Online Immersive K-Pop Content Production Project, which is a long way to basically say they are creating a stage setup and other resources for underdog companies, less well-funded, promo opportunity filled K-pop acts. That was not an eloquent way to say that, but you know what I mean. The artists who need more resources and help really boosting their status and getting the word out there about their music, they're hoping to aid those groups by a government-funded stage setup. And that's what some of this budget is going to, as well as to just alleviate some of the economic pain that currently existing stages and everyone behind those stages has been dealing with due to the pandemic. So that's the latest regarding international politics. Now let's, after a quick break, get into the best of 2020. Kimberly Drew and Jenna Wortham have brought together a collection of work, images, photos, essays, memes, dialogues, recipes, tweets, poetry, and more, to tell the story of the radical, imaginative, provocative, and gorgeous world Black creators are bringing forth today. This book presents a succession of startling and beautiful pieces that generate an entrancing rhythm. Readers will go from conversation with activists and academics to memes and Instagram posts, from powerful essays to dazzling paintings and insightful infographics. Kirkus Reviews calls this book a dynamic mixed media exhibition of Black creativity and culture. Booklist calls this an intriguing and beautiful book meant to inspire. Publishers Weekly calls this a multifaceted and visually arresting anthology of essays, poems, and art. I could go on, but all to say that my book recommendation of the day is to check out the book called Black Futures. It is an anthology compiled by Kimberly Drew and Jenna Wortham that is available now. Before I get to my personal picks for the best of 2020, let's talk about what media outlets have been saying and praising in the world of K-pop. Time magazine listed on their list of the top 10 songs of 2020, Stray Kids' Backdoor, saying, quote, multi-layered production, brassy energy, Backdoor starts and ends on a cheeky note in English, hey, you wanna come in? Which only drives home its willingness to welcome everyone into the fold. Which is a perfect way to summarize what Stray Kids music is always about, especially that one song. Time's list of best albums of 2020 had no K-pop on it, but it did have Grimes' Misanthropocene, so I will give them that. I do appreciate that. Rolling Stone listed BTS's Map of the Soul 7 album on their list of the best 50 albums of 2020. It ranked at 16th place, and I really like the description of why it's on that list. Quote, 7 years on top of the world, and yet BTS still make it all sound like they've only just begun to shine. The South Korean pop kings didn't water down their style or language to conquer America, they just won the audience on their own terms. I couldn't have said it better, so I will just leave it at that. The Billboard 200 album chart for 2020 sales has been released and at 200th place, so just getting onto the charts. At the end, NCT 127's Neo Zone, it should have been much higher, but we will gripe about that another day. But at 189th place was Blackpink's The Album. At 156th place was BTS with the Love Yourself Answer, which came out 2 years ago, but it's still charting. And at number 20, BTS's Map of the Soul 7. Also from Billboard, the Social 50 list was released for the year, basically talking about how much social media engagement and discussion is happening around certain artists. And if you are not on Twitter or just don't realize much of what's going on in certain communities on Twitter, K-pop as a force on Twitter is really evident given this list. So here are the top 10 most social engagements surrounding different artists, the top 10 who are most talked about on Twitter and just online, really. At 10th place, Billie Eilish. 9th place, Blackpink. 8th place, ATEEZ. 7th place, TXT. 6th place, SB19 or SB19. 5th place, 17. 4th place, Ariana Grande. 3rd place, NCT 127. 2nd place, EXO. And 1st place, BTS. That's over half K-pop. YouTube has released its list of the most viewed music videos within Korea this year. 5th place is IU featuring Suga with 8. 4th place Blackpink with How You Like That. 3rd place BTS On. 2nd place Zico, Anysun. And 1st place BTS Dynamite. Spotify released its list of most streamed artists of the year. The most streamed OST for 2020 is Sweet Night by BTS's V. And we love to hear it. That would have been my vote for sure. The most streamed K-pop songs in the world in 2020. 10th place, ITZY with Wannabe. 9th place, Red Velvet with Psycho. 8th place, Blackpink Kill This Love. 7, Lady Gaga featuring Blackpink Sour Candy. 6, BTS On. 5, BTS Black Swan. 4, Blackpink featuring Selena Gomez, Ice Cream. 3rd, BTS featuring Halsey, Boy With Love. 2, Blackpink How You Like That. And 1, BTS Dynamite. 3 key takeaways from that. 1, that's a lot of BTS. 2, that's a lot of Blackpink. And 3, this is what is so smart about how Red Velvet released that song Psycho, because it came out at the very tail end of 2019, so it was charting already at the start of 2020, and then it carried throughout the year, and it was the most streamed of 2020 because it was on that cusp, and so it could count for streams in 2020 as if it was a 2020 release, although it kind of wasn't. Anyway, the point is that it was really smart to get on the list by releasing your song before almost anyone else's in 2020. Although, not just that, I mean, it's still a quality song too, but that didn't hurt for sure. Spotify also released a list of the 10 most streamed K-pop acts of 2020 worldwide. At 10th place is G-Idol. 9th place, NCT 127. 8 IU, which is really perfect because of the song that she has called 8. And also perfect is 7th place with 17, 6 EXO, 5 Red Velvet, 4 Stray Kids, 3 Twice, 2 Blackpink, and 1 BTS. The notable thing about this, I think, are, first of all, the fact that G-Idol is on here, and remember, one of my many predictions I had for 2020 was that G-Idol would really skyrocket in terms of fame, so just saying, pat myself on the back for that prediction. Second thing I noticed is that Red Velvet is in 5th place for most streamed K-pop acts of 2020 around the world, which is extra big just considering that they didn't release music as a group really this year. Like I said, that's on Psycho at the beginning of the year, but / end of last year, but then we had the subunit release music this year, and then Wendy especially was on hiatus, and so it was kind of an off year relative to their previous years full of music releases. So for them to still be streaming that much when it's not brand new music is very notable. The Melon charts have released their lists of songs that basically sum up the decade and have charted the best on Melon throughout the decade. In terms of girl group songs, I'll just name the top 5. 5 Blackpink As If It's Your Last, 4 Twice with TT, 3 Blackpink with Doo 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 Doo, 2 Red Velvet, Red Flavor, and number 1 Twice's Cheer Up. Most boy group song wins on the Melon charts essentially throughout the decade. At 5th place, B2B's Missing You, 4th place Winners Really Really, 3rd place BTS with DNA, 2nd place iKON with Love Scenario, the one dance of K-pop, if you will, and 1st place BTS's Spring Day. I'm so excited because now it's time to share my Spotify Wrapped as well as some unique details that I noticed when I crunched some numbers about my stats compared to past years and all of that. First of all, thank you so much to everyone who has been streaming my podcast. 98 episodes and now 99 with this episode have been released of the show, so many of those just this year, and 39 countries have been streaming my show apparently. My show has been listened to in 39 countries, so thank you so much to everyone who has been streaming the show. It's available in 92 countries, and so for 39 countries to be streaming it is a huge percentage of that, just for little old me who's doing this podcast by myself. So thank you to everyone who's been listening. It really means a lot. This show may seem relatively new, but actually I've been doing it for a few years, but I started uploading some older shows and really getting the show off the ground more up and running this past year. So anyway, I'm just saying that the feedback has been great and I really appreciate it and really hope for more in the future going forward, but an exciting start for the show's next level that I've brought it to hopefully this year. So anyway, blabbing over, let's talk about the stats. In case you doubted how much I listen to music and music is my life, I listened to this year this amount of minutes of music, 82,991. 82,991 minutes spent listening to Spotify. Because remember, that's just Spotify too. It's not YouTube. It doesn't count me when I listen to my CD player because I'm old school like that sometimes. It doesn't count me, watching videos on a TV screen and listening to music that way. It doesn't count streams on iTunes and other apps. It's just Spotify. Anyway, so a lot of music this year. I discovered and listened to 544 new artists that I added to my catalog, and I was listening to 187 genres, including 69 new to me ones. I don't know how they describe subgenres in that way, but okay, I'll go with it. I'm very proud to say that I fall into the category of people who listen to one gem before it hit 50,000 streams. I was one of the first to check out My First Stories song called Plastic, which is their best off of their 2020 album. They are a J-rock group who I highly recommend. My First Stories, Plastic. That is such a good song. My most played song from the 2000s. This I'm upset because it doesn't sound like anyone else remembers this. It's such a low-key banger, though, even to this day. Low Riding by Far East Movement. Everyone needs to talk about Far East Movement more still. Come on, people. Low Riding is such a good song. Anyway, and I spent close to 4,000 minutes streaming my favorite artist, who I will get to now. My top genres that I listened to, 5th place was Korean R&B, 4th place J-pop, 3rd place K-rap, 2nd place pop, and 1st place K-pop. I'm going to pretend to be surprised for a second, and I'm over it. Most streamed songs that I had this year. In 5th place, BTS's On. 4th place, Rock by 17, a real old classic. 3rd place, End to Start by NCT 127. That was a great way to end and start my days. I'm not even trying to make a bad pun, it just literally was. 2nd place, Getting Closer by 17, one of my personal all-time favorites of theirs. And 1st place, Nonstop by NCT 127. Truly such an underrated song. That's kind of a B-side track, although it feels weird to say that when it does kind of have a short music video to go with it. But anyway, really underappreciated song off of Neozone, the album, because Nonstop is just, the production is so next level on it. It's so hard to explain, but it's a pop masterpiece. Well done to everyone who worked on that song. It has been the song of the year for me in every way. My most streamed artist of the year. There will be no surprises to long-term listeners, although number 1 and 2 I expected to be flipped, but they're both my favorite K-pop groups, so it makes sense. 5th place, Taemin. 4th place, EXO. 3rd place, BTS. 2nd place, 17. And 1st place, NCT 127. So that doesn't even count the other NCT subunits I've been listening to, or Super M and the other side projects. But I'm in the top 0.5% of listeners for NCT 127 this year, and I am so proud of myself for that. Very excited to share my NCitizen status with that. Now for the super fun part of my math nerd analysis of all of this data, and keep in mind that me talking about this stuff is about my most played 100 songs. That's what the data that Spotify gives you is all about. So when I say like no C-pop was listened to, for example, I don't mean I didn't listen to C-pop that year. I mean no C-pop ended up on the top 100 list that this data is referring to. So I'm just talking about this part of what I've been listening to. So if you're like, where is that artist? You never listened to them? I did. They just didn't make the top 100. So anyway, what I found interesting were the changes over time. So in 2018, I had no C-pop on the list. None made the cut. And then 2019, I had 9% of my top 100 was made up of C-pop songs. And in 2020, it was just 4%. From 0 to 9 to 4%. So that's interesting. It shows that C-pop, my interest in it has kind of ebbed and flowed. As for J-pop, none of that made the cut in 2018 for me. Then it got to 2% in 2019, and now it makes up 7% of my playlist of the top 100. So I listened to a lot of it, but a small percent is making it into the top 100, but an increase of more than twice the amount it was last year, which I find extra interesting just psychologically, because I wonder if there's an element of wanting to feel just unique and special when I listen to it, because like I referenced before, the Japanese music market has not had the best year, with a declining value of 0.9% profits. So I wonder if, because J-pop is not having the moment, that makes me like it more. It's just something weird about humans wanting to feel like they're the one to discover something and like something that no one else does and feel cool about it. I don't know. Just something to think about. In terms of Western pop music, and just Western music in general, that makes up, in 2018 it made up about 20% of my playlist, and then that dropped to 12% in 2019, and this year it dropped to 11%. So huge drop from 2018 to 2019, but in the past year it's been pretty much the same. So it's not going away year after year, but it's significantly declined as I've entered deeper and deeper into the world of K-pop and other pop from outside of Western music markets that I found really next level, just in my personal taste. In 2018, K-pop made up 80% of my list, then that dropped to 77% in 2019, and 78% in 2020. So from 80 to 77 to 78, it's pretty much around 80% no matter what. So it's been pretty constant, even though I feel like I've fallen more into the rabbit hole of K-pop over the years. In terms of the stats, that's been kind of constant, which I found an interesting thing to note. So maybe I'm discovering more and more K-pop, but the percentage of the time that becomes the best of the best for me in my top 100 is still the same. Next, I wanted to look at the variety I had in my top 100 list and how many artists actually made up the bulk of that list, and if there was much variety there at all. So basically what I did was I counted up the amount of songs each artist had that made it onto my top 100 list. And then I took all the artists who had more than one song, 2 or more songs in that top 100, and added those up to find out how many artists made up more than one song on the list. And then I just figured out how many songs collectively those artists had in the list, just to see really the variety of how many artists that seem to be my most played on this list made up how much of the list. How much am I listening to just this subset of artists on the list? In 2018, I found that 22 artists made up 82% of the list. 22 artists had more than one song on the list, and they made up 82% of my listening. So the one-hit wonders just in my head, the people who I casually listen to more, at least according to the top 100 stats, made up less than 20% of who I was listening to. Mostly the people I was a big fan of. In 2019, same thing, 22 artists, but they made up 76% of the list. So this amount of artists was the same, but they were making up less of the list. I was listening to a broader variety more of the time, so that less artists were on the list less often because of the variety. For 2020, that number was cut in half, and 11 artists make up 77% of the list. So the percent is just 1% different from last year, but the number got cut in half still. So from 22 artists making up 76% of the list to 11 artists making up 77% of the list, which I find a very interesting stat to think about, just how you consume music as you get older. As the years go on, do you explore more with the music you're into, or does it seem the way it is with me, where you just suddenly feel more inclined to keep listening to your favorites and not experience and listen to new artists? Yet I apparently listened to 544 new to me artists this year too, so there is a lot to explore with these stats that I don't have the clear answers to yet, but it's just something I've been wondering about and thinking about ever since I calculated it. I also looked at for 2020 about the top 5 artists alone. So 11 artists made up 77% of the list, but what about those top 5 artists in my playlist? EXO, Taemin, BTS, NCT 127, and 17. Just those top 5 that I stream the most make up 62% of the top 100 songs list. So again, I think that's showing as I get older, I'm listening just more and more to my all-time favorites, at least on Spotify. Yeah, there are a lot of stipulations here, it's just on Spotify and etc., but it's still just an interesting starting point to start really thinking about what all these stats mean for your personal music catalog and listening habits. Also this year, NCT makes up 24% of the top 100, not including Wavy, but I counted up the other NCT songs, and that's what it would look like even without the Wavy added. And 17 makes up 19%, and then it goes below 10%. So only 2 artists make up more than 10% of my playlists. I could go on, but the bottom line is that this math is fun and music is fun. Music analytics are fascinating to me, and I would highly recommend that you take some joy and find some joy in Excel, or SPSS is really awesome. It's so much fun. Go ahead and nerd out. No one cares. Go have fun and truly enjoy crunching numbers, because it is fun when you get into it. And that's math. It may seem like, ew, math, but come on, trust me. It's really fun once you get into it and personalize your learning experience without even realizing it. So you won't even think about it as math and statistics once you get into just playing around with graphs and seeing how different things have changed over time, if there are certain correlations between the number of artists you listen to and how often you listen to music maybe, or the percentage of the time you listen to a certain genre, whatever it may be. It's really interesting. There are so many different questions you can pose and explore through data sets. So I would encourage you to just have some fun mathing out, geeking out, whatever you want to say about looking at these Spotify Wrapped stats for yourself, or whatever streaming app you're looking at the stats from, because it's interesting. It's just interesting and fun, and I would encourage everyone to get into that. And it's also a really cool way to just reflect, a therapeutic way to reflect on your year. Thinking about, well, why was that in my most played? What was I going through in that part of my life? Or it's really a way to think about the soundtrack of your 2020, and that I find very interesting. It's also interesting, and in the case of 2020, disappointing to revisit any predictions you made for 2020, because at the end of 2019 on the show, I made a lot of predictions about the K-pop industry in 2020, and of course the pandemic really skewed with anyone's predictions about anything. But let's revisit some of my predictions. I predicted that NCT Dream would reinvite Mark back in, which they did. I predicted that there would not be, or probably not be, a mandatory military enlistment change in the age, but it did actually raise, so I was wrong about that. That did pass. I predicted BTS would get a Grammy nomination, which they did. I predicted that Big Bang would have an iconic reunion show at Coachella with Blackpink as the secret special guest. Who knows if that was going to happen? I'd love to know if that was in the works and then COVID shut it down, or if that was ever even a thing. I predicted that Blackpink would focus more of their promotion than ever in the USA, which they certainly did, from their Selena Gomez collaboration to going on Jimmy Kimmel's show and Good Morning America and all of that. They definitely were heavily promoted in the USA and the talk of the town here. I predicted more of a normalization of having K-pop artists recognized just in music charts and discussions about the best music, and that actually did happen. I was pleasantly surprised at the extent. We have Stray Kids on Time's list of best songs of the year, and of course BTS making it to the top of the Billboard charts, not just with Dynamite, but with their songs that are primarily in Korean as well. And of course the Grammy nomination, we have the late night talk show appearances of different groups. It just feels like it was a really exciting year forward for K-pop being just this normalized presence in Western media, not this anomaly, but I think more and more people are catching on to the fact that it's not a trend, and that K-pop music is here to stay. We're entering a new globalized music era that, if anything, has actually been accelerated because of the pandemic and just realizing how universal music can be a way to get through tough times and all of that. So, a very exciting year for K-pop out in the West and all over the world. The three artists that I pinpointed for having skyrocketing success in 2020 in the USA were Eric Nam, Day6, and G-Idol. While G-Idol entered the top 10 of most streamed artists globally through Spotify, so I would assume they are one of those people, they've also really uniquely adapted and impressively adapted to this new technical digital era that was accelerated by the need to social distance this year with their alter ego avatars and CGI world and everything they've gotten into with that we talked about before. With Day6, I don't know if that was really correct that they blew up this year in the USA, but we did get our first Day6 subunit this year, and Jay from Day6 probably gained a lot of social media followers and became quite the Twitch presence, so yeah, I would say I was kind of right there. And with Eric Nam, definitely I would say he got more popular this year because of his podcast and just because he has been just a delight to follow on social media. So I think that helps a lot with your popularity in the USA. Lastly, I had a unique, really weird theory for why I thought Twice's popularity would not increase in the USA or just anywhere really, and it's hard to tell if that really played out because they continue to win over everyone all over the world, and I don't know if their popularity is just stagnant at a peak or if it's hard to measure that. They did appear on Colbert's show for the first time, which was a huge deal, so I don't even know. They just took over Rolling Stone's Instagram stories the other day too, so they're kind of getting more of a presence in Western media, so maybe I was wrong about that. I don't know, but anyway, I love Twice, so I'm excited no matter what it means. Oh, one more thing, I did also predict more cross-cultural collaborations would happen this year, and obviously that happened all over the place, so expect more of that to just be super normal and not a trend going into next year as well. For more of my predictions for 2021, which I actually, yes, will still try to make despite the pandemic making everything so unpredictable, you've got to tune into a future episode of the show. But that is all I will say about this stuff for today. And the next episode is, TBD about what it really will cover, but just know in the next few weeks, my last episodes of the year will be a bunch of recaps. I'm going to talk about the best J-pop and C-pop of the year, the best K-pop songs and music videos of the year. We're going to recap award shows. There's so much left to discuss to summarize and wrap up this year, so stay tuned. Thank you for sticking with me all this time, and please continue to listen to and share the show, and yeah, thank you.